You know, it wasn't so long ago that people ate turkey when they could get it. At holiday seasons. Well, admittedly, Mom didn't much care for tackling a whole turkey. Up at dawn for the plucking and the stuffing and the trussing and the fussing. Then long hours in the oven before the bird was done. But the rewards were worth it. Because there wasn't another single meal the family looked forward to as much as turkey. But luckily, even while people were savoring the last bits of leftovers, thinking back to that first aroma of turkey coming from the oven, a man named Louis Rich was thinking ahead.
My name is Marty Rich. I like a turkey sandwich on toasted rye with Thousand Island dressing. I'm the third child of Louis and Ida Rich, and my siblings are Rosalind Rich Manson and Norman Rich. My father was born in a small village in the Ukraine, and the name of the village was Belorutka. He came to the United States because his father, Wolf Rich, came, and in the very early 1900s, he saw the freedoms in the United States, and it wasn't easy living in Europe. There were pogroms, there was a lot of anti-Semitism. He came to Ellis Island and then traveled to Chicago because he had cousins in Chicago. And they told him, why don't you go out to Rock Island because you've got people there that you know from Belorutka, and there's more opportunity.
My grandfather, Louis, he came with his sister, Sophie, and they were the last of the family to come. And they were dirt poor.
Who is that a photo of on the right?
It's a picture of my mother and dad. My mother was one of six girls and one boy in a village in Ukraine called Belka. My mother really was orphaned at about maybe 10 or 12 years old. Her mother died. They had relatives in Omaha, so they immigrated almost penniless. My Aunt Sophie had a friend being married in Rock Island, and she and my mother came to the wedding, and she met my dad. This is a beautiful picture of my mother and dad at their wedding, December 14th, 1920. After the wedding, she convinced my dad to go to Omaha and see what opportunities he could find there. He didn't like it. He didn't see any opportunity. So she said, okay, we'll go back to Rock Island.
And his brother-in-law loaned him, I think, $300 or $400 to buy his own truck, and he went back to Rock Island.
And started on his own to buy calves in the country. And they took him to a public slaughterhouse and took and sold him at the meat markets. So he was doing that, and as he traveled the country, farmers said, well, why don't you take our chickens and market those?
By the time World War I rolled around, you started to see Midwestern and Southern farms that are beginning to grow chickens, but still it was pretty minor compared to the pork and beef business. That's really what Americans were after. They wanted to eat pork, they wanted to eat beef. But World War I changed that because, of course, the beef and the pork supplies were largely diverted to the troops. And as a result, civilians had to be satisfied with chicken meat. And that really marked a big shift because for the first time, Americans were forced to turn to chicken as an important source of protein. So after World War I in the 1920s, for the first time, chickens really began to be sold solely for their meat on a mass scale.
Whatever he bought, he could sell the next day, make a profit, and he had his money back without any inventory. So that was the evolution from calves to chickens and eggs. He was selling chickens locally, and then he realized that there was more opportunity to send rail cars of live chickens to the eastern markets. New York City was the biggest, and he had 2 or 3 receivers there that he did business with on a weekly basis. This is a picture of our dad, Norman in junior high school, and me in grade school. Roz, Norman, and myself. We had a wonderful relationship as children. We observed the love of our mother and father, and we were always treated equally. We learned about having ambition, having a good name, and treating not only our employees, but our customers fairly and loyally. Norman and I really admired our dad. He educated himself after arriving in the United States at 13 years old, and he knew how to get to where he wanted to go.
He was always an honest guy. He had relationships with people. They didn't have contracts. They knew they could trust him.
Naturally, he was a financial supporter of the community and was a founder of the Tri-City Jewish Center in 1936. We're turning into the former Lewis Rich Foods plant in West Liberty, Iowa. Came here sometimes 5 days, 6 days, and 7 days a week at times. Every morning, tried to usually get here between 7:30 and 8 o'clock, and made a round to the plant to see what was going on, and usually tried to say hello to everybody as I went through the plant looking at the operation. We had a great team. They were hardworking, and there was a lot of cooperation between the management and the employees. We were all going in the same direction. We were pulling for the success of the company, and we had a great ride.
During the war, my grandfather had purchased this old tomato canning plant along the Rock Island Railroad in West Liberty, Iowa.
They wanted to be in a smaller area where it would be easier to operate with rural area chickens and eggs. Rather than build a plant, which I wish he would have, he bought the tomato canning plant and started converting it.
But all that chicken and egg business started to decline.
So chicken production in the beginning was primarily in the Midwest, but after the 1950s it began to move south. Given the amount of land that was available in the South, plus large amounts of water that were available, and that warmer climate made it the ideal place to expand the American chicken industry.
So therefore, we didn't have product to process. So we saw a need to either go out of business or to start to process turkeys on a large scale.
Prior to World War II, turkey really would have been a protein that was sold just for the holiday time period. During World War II, turkey production did increase because it was not rationed like beef or pork. So then the turkey industry really was at a cross point of what do we do next? We have production and we have farmers. How do we change the industry and move turkey production forward?
Dad saw the opportunity to add turkeys and told Louis to go out and see if you could buy some turkeys.
I wouldn't say that he had any great vision of turkey. Nobody did. You know, he had all these different pieces of his business, selling fresh eggs, chickens. I remember some ducks. They did all this stuff on necessity.
It was a tough go because he was the new guy on the block and went out to the Mennonite colonies trying to buy turkeys from them. And then after he proved himself, they became the best friends.
How did they get in the food business? Their dad was in it. It wasn't like they had this great idea. You know, my dad started medical school.
My grandfather came to him and said, "We need you to come home and work the family business." He had wanted to go to medical school, but he felt a deeper dedication to his family.
He was a sales guy and everybody liked him.
I never thought he was a detail man to do plant operations, but he was outgoing and he had great ideas.
Uncle Marty, different from his brother, he was the quiet leader.
Marty was interested in the business as a kid. He'd go to school in the mornings and go spend the afternoon at the plant.
I learned the business by doing everything. Wherever there's a need, I was there. And I thought I was out in the plant working where the other people were in the office.
So in 1960, they decided to break up the business. And my dad and Marty were only interested in turkeys, so they took the turkey business. They closed the Rock Island plant and they moved all their operations to West Liberty.
After we got together in 1960, we knew what our job was. If we were going to make a success, we had to work together. He was going to be the salesperson, and I was going to be the operations person. And we were going to do it together.
My dad was a dreamer, and Marty sweated the details. The goal was never for one to overtake another, but for them to complement each other.
I think they each saw and knew and respected each other's strengths.
And they worked together so well.
It was, extraordinary. I don't think you see it too often, but you had two brothers that loved each other dearly, trusted each other implicitly.
And I'm sure they had their times where, they were frustrated with one another, but I don't think they ever let that get between them. And they just had this awesome relationship.
They were inseparable. They drove to work every day together.
And then they call each other in the evening to talk about dinner.
There were never two siblings that were any closer than Norman and Marty Rich. At the same time they broke the business up in 1960, my grandfather came down with emphysema.
It was harder for him to breathe, and his health retired him. Turkey was not a hard sell because every supermarket needed turkeys for Thanksgiving, and they started buying them in June. For the 6 months, you could cover the overhead, but you couldn't make anything. So we had to develop a year-round business, otherwise we were dead in the water. First problem was you had to have live turkeys year-round. So we had to encourage the growers to build housing, and that was the start of it. Now, it's the chicken and the egg. You got live turkeys coming in year-round. You got to sell them every day of the year.
We'd already seen turkey pot pies. Swanson came out with their turkey dinner. But beyond that, turkey was really not convenient and looked at in different ways than just a whole bird. The Lewis Rich Company was the first company to really take the whole bird, cut it into smaller parts, and process it into pieces that an average consumer could prepare. So they really revolutionized the way that turkey was offered.
1966, they ran the last whole turkeys in West Liberty. And after that, everything was cut up. At that time, we were also selling breast meat to these turkey roll manufacturers in Philadelphia.
These guys were just cutting our throat. You never knew if you had the product sold or not. So we had to load into Philadelphia.
The markets dropped and they start complaining that the temperatures aren't right and the weights aren't right. And Marty called my dad and he said,
We can't deal with this anymore. It's too hard. So anyway, it was a complicated deal. Norman said, why don't we do it ourselves? So we got a small baker's oven and we started roasting off some turkeys. But while we were doing that, we decided if we could come up with a natural breast that take the bone out but still have the skin and the shape of a natural turkey breast, we would have a great product. So we went to a aluminum foundry. We took them a frozen natural turkey breast with the bone in, and they made us an aluminum mold. So we lined that mold, put the turkey breast in, tightened it, and then they stamped it. That developed into the oven roasted catering breast, which was our premium product and our highest volume sales.
they developed the first natural cooked turkey breast. We could sell more than we could produce. And it wasn't like they had some big plan, oh, we're gonna go in and compete with these people. No, they forced them into it. And then we passed them all in size. How we met Sandy was very simple.
These two friends used to meet routinely when my aunt would go to Chicago. So they were meeting and they were having lunch. And the friend said, I have a friend, Sandy, and she's looking to start dating. My Aunt Roz thought, oh, Marty is the same age. So the friends met again. She said, well, my brother doesn't want to date anyone who has children, but I have an older brother, and we could fix them up. Numbers were exchanged. My father called my mother. They went out on a date. She wasn't feeling well, so he took her home. And he tried to call her, but she never answered. Well, my mother was in the hospital and had gone to the hospital shortly after that date. When he found out, he sent her a dozen roses, and that was that.
And they got married January 22nd of '66.
Uncle Norm was definitely like the original Funkle.
He had that big smile. I think he just loved life. He loved people.
He had the big personality, and he was just a fun guy to be around.
Everything I learned about being a decent human being, I learned from him.
There wasn't anything phony about him, and he was a loyal guy too. He was somebody to emulate.
Our father died in November of 1970, and our mother passed away in July of 1971. When our dad passed away, it was a big loss to all of us, because he was really the patriarch of the family. But I think it even united us, our sister and Norman, myself. As close as we were a lot closer when we lost our parents. My mother died in July of '71, and I met Barbara in the spring of '72. But I was busy and didn't have time for socializing or dating. However, in June or July, my sister was having a pool party. And she said, why don't you get a date to come to the pool party? The only person I really had last dated was Barbara, so I called her and I said, would you like to come to the pool party at my sister's home? That was the beginning of a romance. It was sometime in September, and I proposed to her. We set a wedding date of Thanksgiving Day, 1972, because it was really the first time I would have a chance to be away from the business. Well, after being a bachelor until 39 years old, I found out that being a father was a little different. I had responsibilities. It was important for me to be home on time for dinner because they were waiting for me.
I think there were some things that were probably a little bit hard for him. He wasn't necessarily like the parent to go outside and play catch. It was more just very steady, dependable. You knew who you were dealing with.
He was very perceptive. And then, now looking back, he was religious. He had a lot of faith.
Dad really always put us first. Growing up, I learned about putting others before my own needs. And I think I also learned a lot about hard work. Every
vacation day, I would go to the plant. It was so much fun. A couple years ago, I'm riding in the car with my dad, and I said, Dad, going to the plant on those holidays was my favorite thing. And he looked at me, he said, me too.
The success of their plant in West Liberty made them realize that turkey really needed to go coast to coast.
We added Newberry in 1972. It was trying times till we developed the sales to compensate for the product that was being processed. California was pretty natural because if we had the East Coast and we had the Midwest, we needed a plant there to cover the Western states if we were going to be international and a dependable supplier to the chain stores. There was a plant in Modesto, and we bought the plant and started up operations there in 1974.
After they got into cooking, that's when they started to have vision.
So now they ended up with even more dark meat because the white meat demand went up so high. Being the innovators that Martin and Norman were, they said, let's figure out a way to use that dark meat to meet the demand of consumers today.
First thing we started making was turkey ham. We tried doing it about 3 years before, and the product was a failure. We didn't have the knowledge, we didn't have the right equipment, but now we come back with ham, and it was easy to slice and put on a sandwich.
Delicious ham made from turkey? I didn't believe it until I got a taste of Louis Rich turkey ham.
What a ham!
Everybody loves it. It's made from turkey. It's nutritious and has fewer calories than the best-selling pork ham.
So that was the initial dark meat product. And the next one was salami. And then we said, well, if we're making salami, let's see if we can make bologna. And then we decided that we could make pastrami out of the thighs. So we started making turkey pastrami, and it worked out well. Norm was in California. He was talking to, they were really friends of Morris Pollock. They suggested to him, why don't you make hot dogs? So he called me and he says, can we set up to make hot dogs? I said, are you kidding? We can't come up with that in 3 months. So, we talked about it, we thought about it, come up with an idea. Let's see if we can find a private label packer. We found a guy in Webster City, Iowa, and we talked a little more and we set up a deal with him. We paid him so much a pound. With his people, his equipment, we'd supply the meat and we wanted the finished product. Louis Rich, Wiener Wieners.
When I joined the company full-time, we had a full line of food service and deli turkey products, but we weren't selling a lot of the sausage stuff. So we decided to come out with 8-ounce retail packages of sliced turkey lunch meats, salami, pastrami, bologna, and we had a 4-ounce smoked turkey breast. That was the beginning of Louis Rich Retail. From that time on, We weren't selling thigh meat. We were buying all the thigh meat we could get our hands on.
The vacuum pack cold cuts on the peg, that was a success of the company right then and there. And that was in competition to Oscar Mayer. That's when we got their attention. When they start losing space to our product. We weren't any cheaper than they were, but it was the health.
And had less fat. That was the big deal. And my dad saw that that was a way that we could distinguish our products from others and get people to try turkey. And we did it in our advertising. That was what we stressed.
They took turkey away from being a commodity to being an actual marketed product that was profitable.
And we put the nutrition on the face label, and that was a big deal.
This was a new feature that was not being offered on a lot of other meat products. And the consumers in the 1960s and 70s were really desiring a change on their plate. They wanted healthier foods. They were watching their calories and they were watching their waistline, and they realized that these really good tasting turkey products could fit that desire that they had as a consumer.
Louis Rich, the turkey people. Behind every Louis Rich product is a spectrum of people working together, using the best of modern technology to deliver the finest possible product to our customers. Growing the highest quality turkey, processing it quickly and efficiently to produce the freshest, best-tasting turkey products. Employing a staff of technicians and home economists who strive to make even the best products a little better. Speeding those products to customers all over the country and the world. Louis Rich, the turkey people. First in new products, modern processing, quality control, consumer services, nutritional labeling. Working so everyone can enjoy turkey all year round.
Sales in the company were $3 million in 1960. After we had the second plant in 1973, they were $50 million. Only 7 years later, they were $165 million.
We were the second largest supplier of sliced meats, second to Oscar Mayer. They saw we were making a dent in their sales, and they felt that there was a future in turkey. And then they called and asked if we'd have any interest in a merger. It was closed on December of 1979. We thought there was tremendous growth potential. The other thing was we had so much personal risk. So we saw that it would offer us stability, but it would also offer security to the employees and the management.
After Oscar Mayer bought us, the retail business really took off because all of a sudden we had hundreds of salesmen calling on supermarkets selling this stuff. And from what I understand, Louis Rich sales in the 80s reached close to $1 billion.
They told us that we'd continue to run the business with our way and our people, and they were just adding us on, to their corporate structure. But before we left, they sold to General Foods.
After that, neither one of them had any ownership interest, and they knew it was time to go. But they didn't anticipate what would happen.
Before we looked around, General Foods had sold to Philip Morris. And Philip Morris was a good operator. They left everybody alone, but they did supply the money. And in retrospect, they supplied too much money because Oscar Mayer overexpanded Louis Rich. They didn't figure out how much could be sold in the market. If the population was eating 10 pounds of turkey a year, you can't start feeding them 20 pounds of turkey a year because they're not going to buy it. Then Philip Morris bought Kraft Foods, and turned over the operation to them, which they may have known how to sell cheese, but they didn't know how to sell turkey and pork products.
There were less people around and they just had each other. It was something to watch and admire.
I don't know if you can get any closer than they were, but I think in later life they did.
They were always there for each other, no matter what, in good times and bad.
They did everything together. It was almost as though they were twins.
They had good friends. They shared a lot of friends, but the two of them were inseparable.
I cannot think of any example of two people who could be so incredibly close and connected to work together daily, to live near each other, to socialize with each other, to talk on the phone daily, to see each other most days. It's almost not human.
They were a two-man band of brothers in every aspect of their life.
Norman and I shared an office together from the day we started working for the company until the day we left, and even after we spoke to each other each day. We got together on many occasions. Our lives were just intertwined till the day of Norman's passing. My brother Norman passed away May 23rd, 2018. And that was another major loss to me because we were really tied together at the hip, and we probably spent more time together than anybody I know. We practically talked every day that we weren't actually touching each other. We were partners in business, we were partners in life, we were partners in everything. And that was a big loss. I still, or quite often, I look around and want to tell him something that I just learned about or thought about or talked about. And I look around and he's not there to talk to.
He was a wonderful father to his children, and I think he knew as many good decisions that he and Marty made, that they had a lot of mazel with it too.
Louis Rich as a brand doesn't really exist anymore. But what he told me about helping people, that people generally want to do the right thing, that's forever in me.
Left a big hole in the family, but Marty's done a pretty good job of filling it.
He's the glue of our family, and I think he has taught us that family is the most important part of our lives.
Being around family, whether it's the grandkids, his kids, cousins, even his longtime friends who are effectively family at this point, it's what brings him the most joy in life.
He takes care of everyone, and he's always very kind.
He does so much for us before even thinking about himself.
He's always taking the extra step to make sure we're comfortable and happy, and really just always there to hang out and be awesome.
This is a man who's achieved everything you could ever want to achieve in this life. Yet whenever he's reached out, it's always to see what I'm doing and celebrate my achievements. And even though by scale, his achievements tower over mine, he's always made mine feel like they're the more important ones.
For all of us grandchildren to look up to him, it's meaningful because he kind of passes on his wisdom and his selflessness to all of us.
He doesn't judge anybody. He just really accepts everybody for what they are, and that's nice.
I love to tap into his knowledge, his experience, and I learn a lot every day, every phone call.
He's my hero. He is absolutely incredible, and we are the most fortunate family to have him at the helm.
I'm very grateful, and I'm most grateful for the accomplishments of my children and grandchildren. I really hope it's something for posterity that I have lived a good enough life that our grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren will enjoy this story and be proud of this story.